Representative Sherwood. Here. Representative Stiff.
Here.
Representative Walters.
Here.
Representative Swanitzer.
Here.
Chairman Nicholas.
Let's start with 157. 157. Okay. 157.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, this is a bill that we kind of slipped this result because we missed last year when tribal relations was including the tribes participate in a number of various programs. In Title 11, there's emergency insect management programs that is made up of the committee of the director from the Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, the Game and Fish, the state veterinarian, and the governor to address such insect infestations. And on in 406A, where it talks about the participation in the program, it's any state agency or political subdivision. And we amend that language to include their tribe or jointly if they want to participate. And then they have to, any applicant, regardless if it's tribe or state agency or political subdivision, have to coordinate participation in emergency programs under the article with their weed and pest control districts. That's the sum of it.
Any public comment? Come on up.
Chairman Nicholas, Slade Franklin. I'm the Technical Services Manager for the Wyoming Department of Agriculture. We manage this program. In the last 17 years, I was the weed and pest coordinator for the state, and it was a program that I managed directly. So we just wanted to make clear there really is no impact to the program from this legislation. We have been running grants to the tribes. I think since 2004, we've just had to go through a third party to get that funding on the ground for them. This legislation would allow us to do contracts and grants directly with the tribes and tribal council if the a grant application was approved.
Great. Any questions? Any other public comment?
We do have an Aaron Foster online.
Aaron, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Aaron Foster. I am the supervisor for the Fremont County Weed and Pest District in Lander. And I just wanted to voice my support for this bill. We have some direct connection to this, and just want to tell you that I think it'll be an improvement on what we have had in the past. Allowing the tribes to apply for these funds would basically streamline the process that has been going on for several years now, particularly with the management of West Nile virus vector mosquito control. The current process is that municipalities could apply for these funds on their own, but the tribes could not. So they had to have somebody that was either a government entity or a weed and pest district like ourselves apply for these grant funds on their behalf, and then we could help distribute those to them. So in the past year, the Wyoming Department of Health served that role. In the years before that, the Fremont County Weed and Pest District served that role and helped the tribes get those funds. That was our primary role in the whole mosquito program. So this would just streamline that, allow the tribes to take ownership of their own application process, seeking those funds to help them with their mosquito abatement programs. In addition to the mosquito side, I think there could be some benefit to the Fremont County area in the management of grasshoppers. It's not something that we've done in the past with the tribes in this fashion. The tribes can apply for assistance from the USDA if it's for grasshopper outbreaks. But I think with this new program and the tribes coordinating with the weed and pest, there could be some potential to offer some expanded grasshopper programs that would benefit not only the tribes, but also some of the deeded land that is landlocked from within the tribal lands or that borders those lands. It would allow us to give them some programs that would help them out on their rangeland or potentially their crops. So just wanted to voice my support. And if you guys had any specific questions that I might be able to answer, I'd be happy to help.
Any questions? All right, thank you for your testimony. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Move the bill to pass.
Second.
Moved by Representative Walters, second by Representative Larson. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Representative Henderson. Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye. Okay, next, Senate File 148. Representative Larson, want to walk us through this too?
Yes, I do.
Good.
So if you, I wished I had that. Let me grab my statutes here real quick. What this does, committee, is years ago when we created the Wyoming Freedom Firearms Act, we've done that in a couple of sessions, and there was one session where we included in that act 68401, and 68401 talks about authority and preempting federal authority. And the intent of that act was really to say, if you got a firearm or ammunition that was, and it gives the criteria for manufacturing, showing that it's made in Wyoming, it's never left Wyoming, it stayed in Wyoming, it's outside those federal regulations. Having 401 in there brought in some federal confusion. And so this cleans up that whole thing, pulling 401 out, leaves 402 through 406 in place and makes it cleaner.
Go ahead.
And Mr. Chairman, it seems like the unintended consequence of that prior action was to mean that this prohibition on local gun regulations now inadvertently may only apply to firearms made in Wyoming, not to firearms generally. So this would clean that up.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So all this does is strike.
So, Mr. Chairman, it leaves 401 in place, but it doesn't make it part of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. The motion on the bill.
Move the bill.
Second.
Moved by Representative Larson, second by Representative Walters. Discussion. Roll call. We'll go ahead.
Well, I'm looking at the statute, Mr. Chairman. And it tracks the way you're saying it. We're taking and updating, saying instead of 401 through whatever, it's 402 through 406. But my question is, what's the applicability of this to the statute? As I read the statute, it's in the area of 64403 is in the area of abandoning or endangering children. I'm just
668 402.
408. Oh, wait, okay, that explains. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Call for the question.
Okay. Roll call.
Representative Henderson. Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
So there's a chance that Kinski might get a bill passed this year. There it is. Okay, next is
97.
97.
Yep.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
so Representative or Senator Hicks grabbed me about a half an hour ago. He's ill, so he's not going to present this. So I told him we'd just kick it out for. Sure. Well, any public comment on Senate File 97? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
move the bill do pass.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
just so everyone understands what this does, there's currently the Education Trust Fund that is laid out in 21-22-101B, I believe it is. And I think there's about I was gonna say there was about 5 million.
4.9 million.
currently. Anyhow, it does away with that account and transfers all the money in that account to the the corpus of the common school permanent land fund.
Remind me, that one of all those, that trust fund got that funding kind of as a default from some either funds left over or something. Can you remind me, you recall how that was? It was kind of established just to catch some leftover funds, maybe Wilmar.
My recollection, yeah, good. Matt will give us the history. Welcome, Matt. Can you give us the history on the Wyoming Educational Trust Fund? I think it was created but never really used for its intended purpose, right?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Wilmarth, LSO. It is used on an annual basis by the Department of Education. There's a program, statutory program that's repealed in this bill that provides grants to school districts for innovative program opportunities. It's about $250,000. There's a $5 million corpus, and the investment income off of that is then utilized for those innovative program grants. There's a provision in the statute that requires the governor to request within his budget on an annual basis up to $10 million to grow the corpus up to, I believe, $50 million. The governor's office has never done that in my time. And so I think the intent here is just to move the $5 million to the common school corpus within the permanent land fund. What that does is it no longer provides opportunity for those innovative program grants for those school districts.
So as I understand it, but the history is that the way it's explained to me, this fund was created in the late 80s or 90s under the first Campbell decisions. And the intent was to help finance education. And that's why the governor was supposed to keep feeding it, but it was never used for that purpose. And so then at some point in time later on, because the money there was 5 million in it, then they created the Innovative Education Fund. And so and put it to use. Does that sound accurate?
Mr. Chairman, the initial 5 million that was established has not been increased. And so it's been a static figure. I can't recall exactly what year it was established. I believe it was either the late 90s or early 2000s. But that amount has been static. And so the goal of the $50 million corpus has not been reached. And so that's why you have not seen any larger grants or number of districts participating in those grants.
And so in 1997, they created the Innovative Program. Because the account sitting there with money in it. That's my understanding. Does that sound right?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the history on the purpose of why it was established and kind of what the motivation behind it was in relation to the response to the Campbell decision, the first Campbell decision.
So I've got a copy of that stuff right here that Mr. Hicks gave me.
So Matt, just to make sure that I've got this right. So if we do away with this account, put the money into the common school fund, does that extinguish the opportunity for the department to provide those innovation grants to the districts? Or would it still be possible through another funding source available to the department?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Larson, no, that program would be repealed, and that opportunity for school districts in the department to award grants under that program would no longer exist.
Just be done away with.
Right. But those investment earnings on that 5 million would then be deposited within
Right.
the school foundation program account.
So tell us about the Innovative Program grants. My understanding is it's kind of, just tell us your understanding of how they apply, who gets awarded to it, where the money typically goes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wrote a memo on this, and I'm more than happy to share it with the committee. And I think it went back the past 10 or 15 years on the districts that were awarded, the amounts that were awarded. I don't have the, grants and what the purposes those were utilized for, but the Department of Education has certain grant requirements and application requirements. And then the awards are made to small school districts, medium-sized districts, and large school districts. And I believe there's a limitation on how often a district can apply and be awarded those grants. But I don't have the background on what those existing grants have been awarded on, whether it's a career technical education program or some other type of innovative program that the district is. And I can certainly follow up with the Department of Education to see what kind of grants have been awarded.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
so I just sent a committee an email that links to the grant reports. It goes back to 2016 for the Wyoming Trust Fund for Innovative Education. So that's in your inbox. And I did reach out to the coordinator when I saw this bill because I was worried about this program going away. So right now they are focused on funding for computer science and professional development opportunities. They give out between 6 and 7 grants a year through the school districts, and those are classified by ADM, who is prioritized for those. In the statute, that outlines the program, focused again on the curriculum development. So right now, my concern with the bill, the way it's written, and I think this is maybe an unintended consequence, is I think it's great to consolidate these funds, but I think we should provide a pathway for funding for this program to continue through the Common School Permanent Land Fund. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Have we heard anything from the department?
I thought we had some testimony on this earlier.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So it looks like, based on the memo that I believe Matt did, there are just 4 school districts that have gotten about half the money over the past 5 years. So it's been a little disparate in how it's been done.
That was my recollection.
And the purpose of this whole bill is that in some ways we've had a lost opportunity in terms of the interest earned, just because it's been stuck essentially in the state agency pool or into pool A, where it's not over the last decade not been earning what it would have earned had it been in the Common School Permanent Land Fund. So as far as the programmatic aspect of it, it's a different policy question whether we want to have these kind of innovation challenge grants. I mean, I'm all for innovation and certainly for career and technical education, but it seems we could do that in a more rational way.
So
Yeah, that's the notes I have right here that says that in the last 4 years, 50% has gone to 4 school districts. So it's basically a pet projects accounts for a few particular districts.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to discount the memo. I'm just looking at the list of previous grant recipients, and it is very broad. So maybe there's a disconnect here on how this information is getting reported.
it sticks in my mind that we had this conversation in the budget hearings too, and we asked why,
We did, yeah.
why some of these grants aren't going out broader. I guess my concern, Mr. Chairman, and I don't argue, I think Representative is correct. We're losing an opportunity of higher earnings, but then do you sacrifice that for losing opportunities to provide these grants? And unless we make up that somehow someplace else, to Representative Sherwood's point, but the department's not here to give us any direction.
Well, what I'm inclined to do is we'll table it and have the department show up tomorrow. And then Larry can come back and give his spiel too. And if you could email us that memo that you did. Okay. So you want to give a call to the Department of Education folks? And tomorrow's Thursday, so we'll have them come in at lunchtime. And then would you send an email to Larry, tell him that we tabled it and that we'll hopefully he'll come tomorrow and present it to us again. Okay. Let's switch over to 66.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
all right. Members, Senate File 66 was joint appropriations bill. And this bill consolidates accounts on the school side. It consolidates the school capital construction account, the school land mineral royalties account, and the school major maintenance sub account, all into the school foundation program account. It also does away with the 0.45% of SIPA that comes into the school capital construction account. So that portion would remain in the on the general fund side of the ledger if this were to pass in its entirety as currently drafted. So that's the genesis behind it. I don't know if you want me to walk you through what it does. A lot of it is conforming just to make it work.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
my recollection is we worked this before, as we was at a point where we were comfortable with the content of the bill other than the redirection or the elimination of the 0.545% of SIPA now being eliminated to schools. So if I can ask Representative Walters if I've got that correct, and then if so, then I would be inclined to go ahead and move the bill and see if we can fix it.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We have gotten that far, and I think I have at least one amendment and then a possible second to discuss, but maybe not take any farther.
Okay, any public comment on the bill?
You ready to move it now?
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Ken DeCary. Work for the Wyoming School Boards Association. Mr. Chairman, it sounds like you're headed down that road, but our concern is with the repealer and taking that money that's going to the major maintenance account right now. I guess the concern is, it's going to have to be made up somewhere because that's a very important part of maintaining school buildings and keeping them in the condition. So,
We agree.
okay. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the point I wanted to make. Happy to answer any questions.
You got any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. There's a motion on the bill. Moved by Representative Walters, seconded by Representative Stitt. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will pass this out so everyone has a copy, and I'll have a copy for you, Jackie, at the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
You take it.
So my motion, and you'll see it here shortly, would be on the top of page 3, line 3. Actually, it would start down on the bottom on page 2, line 18. We would reinsert that stricken language, so it would not be stricken. That again, that's page 2. I move this.
So we're
Page 2, line 18, we would remove the stricken language. We want it to stay in the bill. So that is retained. And then we move on to page 3. And inserting at line 3, the document that you just received, or the piece of paper you just received, we insert just the subsection B and Romanet I and double I. So basically the bottom 2/3 or bottom half of the page, we insert there. And because there's not line numbers, if you go down in Romanet I about the 5th line, it says it's credited to the school major maintenance sub account. And so then for purposes of discussion, I would strike that and say it is credited to the school foundation program account.
okay. Understand? Everyone understand the amendment? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the effect is the money flows to schools the same. It's just that it's going to the school foundation program now, not into the school major sub account, because that sub account's being eliminated.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct. And
That
I,
makes sense, Matt?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a technical suggestion is I would strike on that handout the last sentence or last two sentences as well, that reads funds within the sub-account shall be expended only for school major maintenance obligations for the state. For purposes of accounting and investing only, the school major maintenance sub-account shall be treated as a separate account from the strategic investments and projects account. I would strike all that language as well. So it would just read in the new paragraph 1, an amount equal to 45% of the maximum amount which may be credited to the strategic investments and projects account pursuant to Wyoming statute 94719Q shall be credited to the school foundation program account.
Okay,
that's accurate. And I had that in my notes and didn't get that all translated. I apologize. And so then to further answer the question from Representative Stith, yes, this keeps the 0.45% of SIPA flowing to schools. And then it still consolidates all the accounts as previously discussed.
okay, any other things in part of the amendment?
Question on the amendment?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, there was a discussion, and I'm not going to make the motion yet, just maybe have a general discussion on it. For this SIPA funding that we just discussed, do we want a trigger mechanism that says it will stop flowing there at some point in the future? There was some discussion of saying when the reserve account gets to 5X or 7X, but that really doesn't do anything since we chose to put this directly into the school foundation program account, not into the reserve account, because we put it into the program account so that it will be spent because we want it spent for school capital construction. We don't want it saved essentially. So when we did that, then triggering it based off of the reserve accounts really is also difficult and problematic because those reserve accounts will fluctuate so often. And so it might be flowing for 6 months and shut off for 6 months or a year and then flowing again. So if we wanted to do something like that, it would probably make more sense to put in a date certain. So in the end of the 27, 28 biennium, and I just throw that out as an example, is when that would expire and no longer go this direction. Or we just say it continues and we don't worry about it and let a future legislature decide what they want to do.
Sorry to interrupt. The reason that we bring this up is because that's what the Senate wants us to do. And if we don't do it, then we'll probably end up having this issue in a concurrence to see if we can come to a solution on it.
Question, Mr. Chairman. I'm having if we're looking for funding sources for schools, I don't know why you just don't let it go to the school foundation account and keep writing. Am I seeing that incorrectly somehow?
Well, and I don't disagree. Because in my conversation with Senator Hicks has always been, as part of this consolidation of accounts and simplification, we also, and because that's what one of his goals is, but I said the project should also include finding a steady, consistent source of funding for education. So we don't have to every year go find money because there's never enough money to do major maintenance and capital construction and fund education. And so
question then, Mr. Chairman. So if we put that date certain, then where is it that they would like to direct those funds to? That percentage.
they'll just want to,
They'll be in SIPA.
two different things. Number one, they want to get rid of SIPA.
Right.
While it's still there, they would just rather than have it go to the general fund or some other location. So to me, if we just leave it as is, and our conversations should be, we want to simplify education funding process, but we want to also achieve a steady stream. And until we do that, this ought to stay where it's at, where it's located. So I'm inclined not to amend it and have this further discussion with our friends down the hall.
I'm with you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the discussion. As I said, I was not bringing a motion at that time and just wanted the
Yeah,
discussion, so.
we just wanted to let everyone know what our discussions were, so. Okay, so
Move the bill.
as amended, roll call.
Representative Henderson. Representative Larson.
Like.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye. Okay, who wants to floor manage this little?
I can.
That's what I was thinking would be easier, easiest.
Thank you, Matt.